Hey guys, like I'm watching this and I miss the 80s. I do.
You have to wonder if the collapse of the Soviet Union and the end of the Cold War, did it have more to do with us doing good things to beat them, or did it have more to do with their mistakes?
Before we were on here tonight, we were talking, Julie went to the Bruce Springsteen concert. It's where's the institutions role in society, and we're lamenting that it's just not that way right now.
He was the guy that has no commitments and just wants to go around, get drunk, and meet as many women as possible, and have his pee every day of the week with a different girl.
I just don't understand how Philip couldn't diffuse that situation, though. It seemed like it went south really quick, and he could have just been a little bit more timid and been like, oh, you won't see me with your girl anymore.
And Agent Gad, by the way, who put this guy in charge of anything? He's like, hey, you want to do something extrajudicial? Unless this is Kash Patel's FBI.
Russia, I indicated, is a geopolitical foe.
You know, the Cold War's been over for 20 years.
Make sure I don't do any spying around here.
Oh, you better not.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Russia, if you're listening, I hope you're able to find the 30,000.
The 1980s are now calling to ask for their foreign policy back.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Illegals, the Americans Rewatch podcast. We are going to be talking about episode 9, season 1, Safe House. We are so happy to be here to break down this wonderful, amazing show of the 21st century. We break it down with historical context from the 80s. We break it down with historical context from 2013 when this show aired, and we talk about how it affects us now here in 2026. I am one of your co-hosts, Michelle Kinney. I'm here with Julie Roginsky, retired Lieutenant Colonel Jaclyn Urso, Nina Jankowicz, and the one and only Jarvis. Before we start talking about Safe House, though, what we've been doing is talking a little bit about the episode, what was going on when the show aired. So I guess I'll start with when the show aired. So Safe House aired April 3rd, 2013. This was directed by Jim McKay, who is an American film and television director, producer, and writer. He has directed episodes of The Wire, Better Call Saul, Big Love, and others. It was written by Joshua Brand, who is a writer, director, and producer who created Saint Elsewhere and Northern Exposure. There's some featured music. Again, we talked about this last week. There's a little bit more music. They're being able to fit this in their budget. My theory is that they blew their whole music budget in the pilot, and they're just kind of getting back into it. But there's Good Days by the Gringos and What You Gonna Do by Pablo Cruz. And in terms of what was happening on April 3rd, the Associated Press dropped the use of the term illegal immigrant. North Korea shut out South Korea from Joint Industrial Park. Mark Sanford won the GOP runoff in his comeback. Political comeback. Malaysia prepares for tense elections. Let's see, the former Atlanta schools chief faced cheating charges. It was a former superintendent of Atlanta's public schools who was among 27 educators who turned themselves in after being indicted on racketeering charges in a massive cheating scandal. IMF signed off on Cyprus bailout. The International Monetary Fund agreed to contribute $1.3 billion to Cyprus's $13 billion bailout. The euro gained strength against the dollar after the announcement, which further cemented a deal requiring Cyprus to restructure its two largest banks and reduce its budget deficits. Hillary for President, Super PAC, launched on this day. Very sad. At the time, very exciting, but very sad to think about now. And the second Republican senator backed gay marriage, which I think is it's crazy to think that in 2013, like that hadn't happened yet because it seems so baked into life now. But in this episode, Safe House, I thought this was a phenomenally written episode. I thought the performances were fantastic. There was a lot of really pivotal moments, not only in the plot, but the characters. And in this episode, we take what happened, the mutually assured destruction of Elizabeth and Philip's marriage, brings itself into this episode. They tell the kids that they're going to separate, which had me thinking a lot about the 1980s divorce rates. And it says the refined divorce rate in the United States peaked around 1980 at 22.6 divorces per 1,000 married women, before falling slightly to 20.5 in 2008. And it has fallen even more sharply in the last 15 years to 14.4 divorces per 1,000 married women in 2023, which I thought was really interesting. But at the time, I mean, this is not even really a decade after women were able to get bank accounts. This wasn't terribly long after all 50 states had no-fault divorce. So really, this is one of the first full decades where women are able to kind of step out and go, yo, I have the freedom to leave here, make my own money, have a bank account. And it became a little more acceptable. And obviously, this is when the Republicans and the conservatives in this country started to freak out because they're like, uh-oh, women have a little bit too much freedom. They're going to run away. And then they spent the next 50 years trying to destroy our lives.
They're going to be underbabied.
Underbabied, says Dr. Oz. We're underbabied.
Yeah. 1 in 3 Americans are underbabied. What does underbabied mean? That means that you either don't have any children or you have less children than you would normally want to have.
So cool. I loved that. That was an awesome cool thing to hear. Yeah. You know, what did you guys think? What were your first thoughts out of this? I mean, I thought it was beautiful, but I thought this was a completely upsetting and devastating, just plot-wise, just really upsetting.
Can I pull back for 1 second, Michelle, because I love your history?
Yeah.
I was a TV critic back in the day when St. Elsewhere and Northern Exposure were shows. And to me, it represents many eras have been called golden ages of television. And I think they're mostly all bull. But I think that was a moment, because I think it was when before we were on here tonight, we were talking, Julie went to the Bruce Springsteen concert, way off topic, but it's where's the responsibility of the entertainment industry in the larger society. And so you have that continuum from enlightened shows like Northern Exposure and St. Elsewhere, and then you have 2 Republican senators voting for gay marriage. There's a continuum there. And the continuum is about, I think, the entertainment industries and the institutions' role in society, and we're lamenting that it's just not that way right now. Whether it's television or music or movies or anything, we're not seeing that same kind of effort to be enlightened. So I just wanted to mark that.
No, that's such a great point. Yeah,
because
courage.
Politics, as Andrew Breitbart so rightly said, is downstream of culture.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have shows like Will and Grace, we've talked about this before, normalizing marriage equality well before the Supreme Court did, or before most states did. That's when you start to have people who are not necessarily living in San Francisco or, at the time, the Hell's Kitchen / Chelsea part of New York, who understood that there was nothing to fear about gay people, because those gay people would come into their bedrooms once a week in the form of Will and Grace, or in the form of other characters. I think, speaking of Bruce Springsteen, the song "The Streets of Philadelphia," remember the movie Philadelphia with Tom Hanks?
Oh my God, pivotal.
I mean, pivotal movie, beautiful, just beautifully told. And I think then you start having kids come out. And as I think about this, I don't remember if Rob Portman was one of those senators, but the reason Rob Portman of Ohio was eventually a senator who supported marriage equality was because his own son was gay. And, it's because his son felt compelled to come out, because maybe it had become easier for him culturally to do that because of these shows. I don't know, but perhaps that was the case. His father ended up doing the right thing and supporting marriage equality, and not just marriage equality, but the legislation also that Gretchen Carlson and I were pushing with respect to women's rights ultimately. And so all of that emanated from the fact that his son had come out. And so I think there is a lot to be said for acceptance from TV / especially television, because unlike movies, television comes into your bedroom in a very intimate way every single week. And I know that from my own time when I was on Fox back in the day, people felt sometimes when they'd see you on the street, and I really felt this when I was at the Republican convention in 2016, because that's where they all hung out, all the Fox viewers, that people really felt like you were a member of their family. even if they didn't agree with you, that you kind of belong to them, because unlike in a movie theater, you did come into their bedrooms every single day in the most intimate part of their houses, in the most intimate room. A lot of these people had TVs in their bedrooms, as a lot of people do. And I think that is so important to note. And so I know we're talking about the Americans here, but we feel invested, I think, in Philip and Elizabeth after watching 9 or 10 episodes of the show already, in ways that we wouldn't have felt invested maybe if we had just watched a 2-hour movie. Unless it was really beautifully told in the way the Philadelphia was, for instance, beautifully told, because we just spent 10 hours with these people.
Yeah.
Really long time to spend with fake people.
Yeah. Fake people telling a great story. And I, Jeff, you were talking too about, the golden age of television and how that's all crap. And I actually took a class at Syracuse, taught by Bob Thompson, called TV of the 80s and 90s. And the textbook, he wrote it, Bob Thompson did. And it was like the second golden age of television is what the name of the textbook was. And we spent a week on St. Elsewhere and Hill Street Blues. And I think we spent 2 weeks on Twin Peaks. I mean, it really was one of the most illuminating classes I took outside my own department, where my major was. And it was one of those classes that I take everything I learned into this podcast. The way that I look at television is different now, just from that one semester.
Part of that was, I think, that one at the time could include Cosby in the list.
Well,
the great disappointed.
Yep. But what a great example that Cosby was the first time that white middle America got to see a Black family depicted not as the Jeffersons who had moved on up to the East Side because, George Jefferson sold a bunch of dry cleaners, which is how I think he got rich and was able to move
something like that
to his deluxe apartment in the sky, and not Sanford and Son, where they're working in a garage or what's happening.
Junkyard.
Or junkyard, or what's happening, which was, a bunch of poor kids living in a Black community, but how you have a doctor and a lawyer who were raising their kids in a very affluent Brooklyn Heights in a very beautiful house. And the kids were, 4 or 5 kids who had the same concerns, right? About doing well in school and getting again, I think the Cosby Show, for all that Bill Cosby turned out to be a horrible monster, and it sounds like he was even back then, but that show was seminal in the same cultural way because it was able to move culture, and then I believe politics, probably, and political attitudes towards African Americans, and in a way that nothing else would have been able to accomplish. There's no amount of floor speeches that you can give on the floor of the House of Representatives that will be equivalent to half an hour of what Bill Cosby was able to accomplish on the Cosby Show.
I'm reading Gunther Anders right now, who was Anna Arendt's ex-husband, a philosopher, and he decries television and radio, but because what he says is we don't go out in the world anymore. The world comes to us in our homes, and we are in the world only when we close the door at our home. And so there is a representation of the world that is there in entertainment, and there is in television. And if we look at today's television, and I think we could argue the Americans was probably the kind of the tail end of that. We have things since. We have Sopranos and other things since, but in terms of free television,
free-ish.
Free-ish, yeah, thank you. I think it was one of the last of that kind of quality of responsible television trying to give a view of the world. Having said that, they were mean sons of bitches on the show.
Well, like The Sopranos, right? Like you mentioned that I went, and we could actually talk about the episode in a second, but I went to go see, as you said, Bruce Springsteen yesterday, and of course, little Steven's right there playing with him. And I'm looking at Steven Van Zandt, I'm thinking, this guy is in what is arguably the greatest living band of all time right now, and was on the greatest television show of all time, to me, which is The Sopranos. Like, and yet he's little Steven, right? Like, he's not Bruce Springsteen himself. He wasn't Tony Soprano himself, but the career is astonishing. And I think in the same way as I mentioned about Springsteen, where there's nothing that's replaced him from a conscience standpoint, there's nothing that's replaced The Sopranos, really, or The Americans
No.
from any kind of standpoint. Yes, there were awful sons of bitches. We could talk about that show now.
Mm-hmm.
I, for one, am really glad Agent Amador has finally died because he's the most annoying.
Awful. Just
awful. Like,
so totally awful.
I'd forgotten about this narrative. I forgot about this.
If I had to hear him say pussy one more time, I was like, stop it.
I forgot that the
My ears
language
are
was
bleeding.
so blatant.
Well, how about the fact that I was watching the show today because I was trying to catch up, and my son walked in right as Philip was having
God,
go to town on what's her name,
Martha,
and the most explicit
Freaky.
possible. And then so I cover his eyes because he's like laughing. I cover his eyes, and he's like, "You can't let me cover my ears."
This is what you do for a living, Mom?
Yeah. And I was like, I have to watch this. He's like, "You're watching porn for a living?" I was like,
it's cable.
I'm like, I may get paid to do this. That's the saddest part. But
If he thinks that's porn, you're lucky so far.
That's true. Good momming so far.
Good point. Oh God. So yeah. So the point is, there hasn't been a thinking TV show since the Americans went off the air, which I think it did well after The Sopranos. The Sopranos, I think, went off the air. It went off there in like 2009, I think.
Yeah. Well, in Amador, so we talk about the episode here. A lot of the show. Well, it's kind of like one thing leads to another. In the fact that Elizabeth and Philip separating enables Philip to stay the night at Martha's apartment for the first time. And we see at the episode before that one of the very last shots, and I went back actually and watched episode 8 again today as well. And I guess I noticed, because sometimes you're watching this stuff and you like, it leaves your brain. I didn't realize in that last scene that he had followed her. Yeah. Amador had followed Martha home.
Yes.
And so he knew what was going on. And so it's like, there's a couple things here. So we know, first of all, that Amador is a Vietnam veteran, right? So he's dealing probably with some level of PTSD. I'm assuming, having come back from that, maybe feeling like he's living on borrowed time, still wants to serve his country, and he's doing so through the FBI. But still, I want to, like, my instinct says, like, I want to feel bad for him because he's such a lonely man. But at the same time, I'm like, you have chosen this. And this is just another prime example of this male loneliness shit that we're dealing with here in 2026.
Yeah, well said.
Of like, feel bad for me. I'm lonely. Martha, I didn't want you and I didn't want to treat you well. But how dare you have better standards for yourself? And deny me the right to be with you now that you look so much happier.
Yeah.
And because of that, catches Philip as Clark leaving in the morning and like threatens to arrest him.
Can I help you? I don't know. I'm with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Can I ask you a few questions? Why don't we start with who you are?
I'm just a guy.
Yeah, you're just the guy who spent the night with a girl, Martha.
Oh, look, my friend.
I'm not your friend. Why don't we take this conversation downtown?
And of course, in the moment, he had just learned from Martha that they're going to take out a KGB agent. And so he's like, oh, shit, are they on to me?
Agent Gadd got a call from the White House a couple days ago. And since then, he's been in and out having secret meetings.
What are they planning?
I think they're going to kill a KGB agent. It's an eye for an eye, Clark. But you can stay as long as you like.
And they have this back and forth. And obviously, if he'd been taken in downtown, like, he would have seen his neighbor. I mean, the whole thing, it would have been awful. But he pulls out a switchblade, and Philip, being the KGB that he is, turns the knife back into Amador's abdomen and throws him in the back of his trunk. To his own demise, but which completely changes Stan forever. And again, just being in the wrong place at the wrong time. This poor kid over at the embassy. It's just a lot of unfortunate, really, really unfortunate. I mean, imagine exploding a potato in the microwave and burning your hand. And for that reason, you were not jogging in the park.
Ну мы что, не побежим? Картошкой обжегся. Взорвалась прямо в микроволновке. Теперь хотят делать пересадку кожи.
And you lived, and the poor little guy who works in the desk,
I must
20 feet away.
The writing in Russian, once again, was on the screen, and it was better in Russian because whereas the Chiron said, he said American technology. In Russian, what he said was, oh, here's your capitalist, like, it was a very Soviet thing to say, like, here's your capitalist, advance.
Interesting.
Like, here's your capitalist, like advance, like, quote unquote, like.
Вот тебе, Володя. Прогресс капитализма.
Ну ладно, давайте.
Yeah. Why do you think that they?
I don't know. Because it's so much better in Russian. It seems like almost two different writers are writing. There's a writer for American television, and there's the writer who writes in a way that Soviets would have actually spoken. So I belabor this.
I wonder which came first in the process.
I don't know. That's a great question. I assume the English, right? Because they obviously would have just written it. The writers were sitting in the writers' room writing.
Maybe it was a very subversive translator.
I don't know why. I don't know why. Oh, the Russian translator. Yes. I mean, well, I got.
Or they just handed the English lines to the Russian actor and said, "Hey, can you do your own version of this?" And that's what he chose. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Maybe that was it.
It's so much true. I don't want to belabor this every week. I know. Other than Nina will agree with me on this, I hope. But other than to say that I only wish that they had translated it faithfully is the way these people actually delivered the lines, because the lines were actually delivered much more intentionally and much more true to how it would have been said. Like American technology is not what you would say, but like, there's your capitalist, like advances, whatever it was. But I actually don't know that I do agree with you that he's stalking Martha because he doesn't want her to be happy. I thought it was completely out of character for him to be stalking this plain rando secretary when he has about 20 other Marthas.
But but she's the one who's denying him. And
so
that's the whole thing.
Two things. I think it's the denial, but he also caught her at the photocopier after hours. Like, I think he had a little bit of spidey sense that something was happening there.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think he recognized Phillips/Clark, but I think he thought the whole thing was a little bit weird. I just don't understand how Philip couldn't diffuse that situation, though. It seemed like it went south really quick, and he could have just been a little bit more timid and been like, oh, you won't see me with your girl anymore, and like gotten away, and then told Martha later, we've got to be more careful. But instead, he just like went from 0 to 100. Maybe it was the grapefruit that did it. I don't know.
Well, the fact that Amador didn't recognize either of them from the party.
Yeah,
their disguises aren't that good.
Yeah,
and he lusted after Elizabeth.
Yes. Yeah.
So, who's the babe? Not your wife, the other fox.
That's my neighbor.
That's your neighbor? Mm-hmm. I'd borrow some sugar if I was you.
Jaclyn, what did you think of Amador?
He was the guy that has no commitments and just wants to go around, get drunk, and meet as many women as possible, and have his.
I have no wife, no kids, no pets, no hobbies, no distraction except for pussy.
His pee every day of the week with a different girl, and I think it's strange that Martha was the one that's kind of the homely one that was denying him, and he kind of got hooked on it, not because he really liked Martha, but because Martha had control over him. And Philip, at the end of the day, I think he took a calculated risk because he didn't know if Amador was after him as a KVG agent or was after him because he was banging Martha. And so you see that in his eyes. He's calculating like, okay, well, which one is it? And then he decides to go with it and go, yeah, I've been banging Martha, for weeks on end. And like, he guessed right.
You know what? You got me dead to rights, because me and Martha, we've been banging each other into ecstatic oblivion for the past, 10 hours.
I tend to agree with Nina that I think it's not that he cared so much about who Martha was banging, and I don't think it was that, as I think that he busted Martha doing something that Martha shouldn't have been doing. I
know, but like during the scene when he catches her, he like asks her out for a drink, and she said no thank you, and he said that's a polite no, can you give me a polite yes or an impolite yes or something, and she goes no. And even in the beginning of that conversation, she's like, I'm sorry baby, and she was like, I'm not your baby, please don't call me that.
I'm not your baby, don't call me that, okay?
You've been looking very nice lately, and I just wanted to tell you that, and I've missed you. Maybe we can get a drink sometime.
No thank you.
No thank you. It's a very polite no. You sure you don't want to make it an impolite yes?
I am.
It's kind of both though, right? Because it's that conversation, which is, I mean, she's empowered with this new strength. And I think maybe that's coming in part from the fact that she's been given this mission, right? She thinks she's helping her man. But he also catches her after hours. I think she jumps when he comes in the photocopy room and is just acting kind of squirrely because this is her on her first kind of mission. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think he's pissed off macho man, but also like it is weird just in general for Martha to be denying him. And I think all of that together kind of sets him off.
Can I ask you a question? Nina, you might know this, and Jaclyn, you might know this. Do they give people like Martha as FBI polygraphs? Like, would that have been something that they do for somebody?
It depends on her level of clearance. And it seems like, at least in this version of the FBI, she's, especially as the, assistant to Agent Gadd, is privy to a lot of information. As I think I've mentioned before, the OPSEC at this fictional FBI is not particularly good. So the fact that she's overhearing so much, the fact that obviously the agents getting killed was news, but like, I think it's strange credulity a little bit. I'm interested in Jaclyn's point of view, that she would know as many details as she does or have access to the files as she does. Because typically a secretary like that, I mean, unless you're working in a skiff, which it didn't seem like she was.
She should have been in real life.
She should have been, exactly. And she shouldn't have had access to that, particularly because this operation was off the books, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it was extrajudicial, as Beeman said. So why would she have information about that?
That's a good point, because that discussion took place at Beeman's house. It didn't take place in front of Martha.
During a party where there's all these people standing
again, the OPSEC.
We're going to take one of them out right here in D.C.
Is this approved?
If anyone should ask, no.
I'm sorry, if this is extrajudicial, I would rather stay away.
Yeah, KGB agents right there.
Right. Yeah. And Agent Gadd, by the way, like, who put this guy in charge of anything? He's like, hey, you want to do something extrajudicial? Like, aren't you like the number 2 guy? Like, aren't you the head of counterterrorism at the FBI? Like, it was, unless this is Kash Patel's FBI.
Right.
Where's the branded bourbon?
I know, like, who told the Atlantic about my bourbon or something?
Well, before everybody being on computers, wouldn't the paper files have been more important in the operation? Mm-hmm. And thus, the assistant to the head of the office, I think, would have had access to sensitive stuff, no?
I don't know. At least when I have had to deal with files in safes, and again, I've not been as high in government as to have an assistant, so I'm operating on conjecture. But like, you have a need to know or you don't, and you have your combination to your safe, and you're responsible for keeping your shit together and not letting other people have access to it. Although I guess in the case of the photocopying, it wasn't about the hit on the KGB. It was about the flight records for the dude that they
foreign
were
nationals
find, right? Okay, so maybe that is maybe not as high of a classified, but like, again, why were Gadd and the others talking about that in front of Martha? The extrajudicial, like that, sloppy.
Yeah, I have to say the real head of the FBI, not Agent Gadd, who is not the head of the FBI, but the real head of the FBI at the time was William Webster, who was a former judge. And I'm pretty sure ran a much tighter ship than to have Agent Gadd. And yet at a party at, some suburban Virginia subdevelopment with KGB guys talking about this. But
well, I thought it was interesting too, because in the episode before, we leave, those FBI agents had been accidentally, blown up because the assassin that Elizabeth and Philip were supposed to stop, there was one bomb that was put in the radio that was not dismantled or nobody knew about it. So they lose 3 agents or 2 agents or something like that. And Agent Gadd is like, this administration is not going to allow this, and it's all like, very Reagan is not going to allow this. And
this administration is not going to let this happen.
And it's all very FBI copy and Republican-y, and I guess very 80s in that oorah America way, which I was thinking about also towards the end of the episode when we start to see Amador in their safe house, right? The Americans, and by Americans I mean non-Americans, Philip and Elizabeth. He's kind of drifting off and talking about, and he says to Elizabeth, "You guys are going to lose this war.
You're going to lose this war. You can torture me and you can kill me, but we're going to kick your motherland's marbled ass."
And he almost, and it was almost word for word of kind of the things that she said when Granny and them were questioning her. She was like, "You can kill me. I will never talk."
You can help her, you know. Talk now. Save her a lot of pain.
What do you think you're gonna get from us?
Why don't you tell me?
Fine, I will tell you. Nothing. You get nothing from us. She's trained for this. So am I.
We'll die before we'll talk.
We know how to do that.
And he had that same level of commitment to his country than she does to hers.
Why did he give up Gad at the end?
Why did he give up who?
Why did he give up not Gad?
Arcady.
Why did he give up Arcady?
Because he knew it was after the time that it was going to happen.
Dead anyway.
Which was also sloppy, but he thought Arcady was surely dead.
Well, he's like, "What?" Right? Because he asked, "What time is it?" first. Yeah.
Can I just talk about who the real Agent Beeman was in real life? A guy who was transferred to FBI headquarters in 1981 and who relocated his family to the suburb of Vienna, Virginia.
Wait, what?
So I'm going to just say who the real Agent Beeman was in real life in 1981, and who then became, who was transferred to the FBI Soviet Analytical Unit, responsible for studying, identifying, and capturing Soviet spies and intelligence operatives in the United States. That person's name in real life was Robert Hansen.
Get out.
Yes. Robert Hansen, for people who don't know, is probably the biggest, as far as we know, the biggest traitor to this country in the post-war era. He was the FBI agent who started spying on his own government on behalf of the Soviet Union in 1979, proactively approached the military intelligence, the GRU, the Soviet Union, and offered his services, not for any political or ideological reasons, but for money. Opus Dei was protected by Opus Dei, had told Opus Dei as recently as 1979 that he was spying for the Soviets. They said and did nothing, which is a whole separate story. And that is who, in 1981, was the Stan Beeman of the FBI in real life. And the question for me is, how much more interesting would it have been to do a whole parallel, not maybe more interesting, but a whole parallel show on the Americans about Stan Beeman, the Soviet spy, which I know in this show he's not. He was charged with espionage. He died in prison. He led to the deaths of countless, and I mean countless, American assets and agents, and just a horrible, horrible person. And he was not arrested until 2000. I want to say 2001. That is,
that's crazy.
Yeah.
To have had, if there had been a traitor in the midst of Beeman's office, that'd have been too complicated a plot. But amazing.
But I meant to talk about this last week because we always talk about Stan Beeman and what a Boy Scout he is. And today on this show, this episode, he was not a Boy Scout. Compared to the real Stan Beeman, he was, beyond a Boy Scout. He's a saint compared to his real life counterpart. So I just wanted to mention that as well.
So I want to talk about Beeman's turn. Like, I mean, I know they gave us the flashbacks that are supposed to establish the camaraderie between the dudes, but like Amador is a jerk. Stan Beeman is a pretty stand-up family man until Amador takes him to a bar, which drives him into Nina's arms. And then he's just like lionizing this guy. I mean, I guess it just really traumatizes you when something like this happens, and I understand it. But then to shoot poor Vlad in the back of the head while he's eating a burger. I mean, I remember that from when I first watched it, and it still left me with the same kind of nauseated feeling, because he turns and he's as bad as Philip and Elizabeth when he does that. Like, he goes from, I'm not going to participate in something extrajudicial to, like, I mean, a pretty grisly death there.
My bite will go hard. He gives the whole speech about the hunting or whatever. Yeah. But it made me think about how, so Stan cares so much and it makes him act differently, out of character. Like, he loved his partner so much that it's now turning him into a different version of himself, kind of like how Elizabeth and Philip were caring too much about each other, that maybe they were making mistakes. And all I could think of is like the Star Wars thing, right? It's like Anakin Skywalker, right? It was like his downfalls, that he loved people too much, that it made him act crazy and do bad things. And we watch Stan. I mean, I went back and watched Stan's face after he shoots the kid a couple times. And well, I know it's just acting or whatever, but it was like there was a very specific choice from Noah Emmerich in that moment. It's like the second he pulls that trigger, like he's a different person forever. And you could see it in his eyes.
There was an inevitability. Amador had to die. Once he'd seen Philip.
Yeah.
There was just no question he had to die, given the rules there. But Beeman didn't have to shoot the kid.
No.
Eye for an eye.
There was a big difference there, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we also see Beeman like be rough with Nina, which in some ways is worse. And she's like, what are you, like, you see that she's really scared at that point. Again, this whole episode just gives me the heebie-jeebies in so many ways.
Something happened?
Who put the finger on Amador?
Who?
My partner.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Don't lie to me, Nina.
Hurting me. I don't know.
Do not lie to me.
Oh, I don't know. I swear I don't know.
This Nina, I'd love to hear from you, Jaclyn, about this. This whole Nina storyline to me is so stupid. Because
I love Nina. I love Nina too.
No, I love Nina. No, it's not Nina. Nina's not the stupid one. Beeman, again, to me, acts very out of character. Like, you are having an affair, a legit affair, with a Soviet KGB agent. Like, under what scenario are you going to do that and then pretend you're a Boy Scout where you're not going to do something extrajudicial? I'd
like to stay away from that.
Yeah, I like to stay away from it. Well, like, totally, I get it. But on the other hand, you're having, like, you're risking not just your marriage and your family, which God bless, a lot of people do that, but you're risking your career and you're risking going to prison for the rest of your life for treason by getting involved in a real way with, emotionally as well as physically, with a KGB agent. Like, what? And wouldn't he be subjected to polygraph tests? Like, talk about just something that's really out of character. And by the way, does nobody think that Nina is playing him? Like, does it never occur to Agent Gad that Nina's playing them?
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to that duty and honor episode, right? Where are you picking your duty or your honor, and then how they kind of thread the needle, and it's like a Dr. Jekyll and a Mr. Hyde. It's like this dichotomy that sometimes they want to go with the honorable thing to do, and then their lust for sex or, for that personal relationship, or kind of feeling like the bad guy, like the bad boy, going against the grain. I think there's always this human connection that you're like, do I do the right thing because it's duty and honor, or am I going to be pulled into the direction of my sins and go the opposite way? And I think you see that with the other people as well. I mean, the relationship between Philip and Martha. He doesn't want to go down that route of having sex with Martha, but then he ends up getting pulled into that sexual tension when he knows it's not the right thing to do. This push-pull constantly all the time, and I think it relates back to the original duty and honor that we spoke about a couple episodes ago.
The FBI agent in that previous episode, also episode 8, gets honeypotted by that hooker, you know what I mean, with the other assassin. It's like wild. And that was one of his colleagues. So, and they're all kind of doing it and not thinking about it. And I'm like, I have to wonder, like, were you all not briefed about this?
I sense there was a moment with Gad where I thought he was kind of winking to Beeman, saying,
like
I know you're...
Well, he gives him a safe house. The episode is called Safe House, right? Yeah. He's like, here, go do whatever you're doing. But also, right before the Arkady mission is about to go off, Beeman begs him under the bridge, please take him alive or else Amador is as good as dead.
If we kill Arkady, we're signing Amador's death certificate. We have to take him alive.
Amador knows the name of your mole in the Residentura, and he talks. She's finished.
And he was like, well, you know, it could endanger Nina if we do that, right? So he knows there's something up. And I think part of it is just like that era of, I mean, not just the 80s, but going back as far as, you know, post World War II era G-men, like, I mean, they were like these sexy guys, right? Like, and I think there was a double standard there for, you know, being able to use women, but not necessarily being subject to the same vulnerability as that they should be subject to, given that they're thinking with their dicks and not their brains.
Maybe, but not if they, like, they're basically taking everything that Nina says. They're treating her like a real asset, right? They're treating her really. And to me, like, wouldn't somebody be smart enough to be like, wait a second, is she like a double agent? Like, are we really running her or is she running us?
Well, I think the fact that they have the blackmail on her with the caviar.
Or do they? Or did she set her? I mean, like, my point is we all know what happens because we watch the show, but and I don't want to give anything away, but the reality is, I would think if I were in that scenario, I would think, did we get ourselves set up for something like that? Like, who the hell knows? I mean, the woman is literally having sex with a married FBI agent, like, who's got on the line.
And all she does once is tell them, I'm not going to go after you. But you would think for her own insurance, she'd be trying to pump Beeman for information.
Well, she says to him, like, you don't understand spies. She was like, spies don't want you to go anywhere or do anything. Like, the whole thing about spying and you have assets is that you want them to stay in the same place so you can continue to gather information. And she's explaining this to him in the previous episode about, you know, you're a cop, you want to put people away. That's not what spying is. You don't understand.
If she says to him in her position, by the way, I'm not going to blow you up. I don't want anything from you. I'm not going to blow up your marriage. The first thing you think is, holy shit, this woman's blackmailing me. Like, she's sending me a message that she's got something on me. She's going to blow me up and blow up my marriage. Like, this is what I'm saying. Every part of this particular relationship, that from the very beginning, I love the show. So I know this is not part of our whole, like, what is going on here. But from the very beginning, the idiots who are running the FBI counterintelligence Soviet unit at the FBI on the show are like the Keystone Cops times a million. Like, who are these people? No wonder Robert Hansen was basically
well, life. And I feel like if Olga was here, she would be, I already know exactly what it is that she would be saying. She would be saying that, well, first of all, like the FBI, the way that they reacted, right, to their FBI agents being taken out, and then Amador, right, it was all very emotional and it was all very eye for an eye. And like, this is, and Agent Gad even uses the words, this is family, right? This is family. And so we're going to take them out. And I think what Olga would be saying if she was here is that she was like, Russians don't think like that. They don't care. Like, it's just a casualty. It's just a, you know, sacrificial lamb of, you know, because it's not about feelings. It's not about family. It's about the motherland. And okay, you took one of ours. All right, cool. Moving on. Like, it's just, it's not as emotional. Right. And so, you know, and also I'm sure she has said this in the episodes prior that the FBI was pretty like out to lunch when it came to the illegals program in the United States. Like, they, you know, in reality, they weren't as aware of it as they seem to be on the show.
Well, I will say that all of our counterintelligence was out to lunch because I, when I was in grad school, was good friends with somebody who had worked at the CIA during, she went to grad school afterwards, during the collapse of the Soviet Union. And she said they basically were all sitting there eating pizza, watching this all on CNN because they were like, what just happened? Like, nobody was prepared for it. So the point is, I think the reality is that we were pretty much out to lunch for much of the Soviet Union's
That is crazy.
80s and early 90s existence. So maybe
you have to wonder if the collapse of the Soviet Union, the end of the Cold War. Well, I don't have to wonder. I guess there's people smarter than me who could write and have written books about this. But was the collapse and the end of the Cold War did it have more to do with us doing good things to beat them, or did it have more to do with their mistakes and their own demise?
Wait, I wrote an entire master's thesis about this that has never been useful to me for any other aspect of my life. And here we are.
Here we are in 2026.
I wrote this in 1995. So here we are 31 years later. And finally, I can ask this question. No, the Soviet Union went broke because of the Afghanistan war, but also because they were spending so much money propping up their satellite nations in Eastern Europe and especially in East Germany, that at the end of the day, they just ran out of cash. They went into, everybody thinks it was Reagan, they went into negative GDP in the 70s before Reagan came along.
You're saying it was Honecker who did the bid.
What about Honecker?
Because of Germany. In essence, that he tipped the balance.
Because the wall came down in 89.
89. Honecker, when the East Germans started rebelling, Honecker went to Gorbachev and said, we need military, we need cash. And Gorbachev said, sorry, we've got none, we're broke. And a lot of that has to do with Afghanistan, which is in 79.
Well, and I mean, then the Charlie Wilson's War part of this, comes in too, and the covert, I'm
not suggesting we didn't spend them down, which we did. But we began spending them down in the 80s, and what I'm saying to you is the die was cast in the 70s.
Yeah, right. Because it wasn't really just like, ooh, America, like rah rah. No, it was their own kind of demise.
No, and our big mistake was doing a victory lap and pretending we kicked their ass, because that was
always our mistake.
Counterproductive on many levels. But anyway, we don't have to discuss that. Back to this show.
Yeah.
I would say that. I think what's fascinating about all of this, and I think this episode was really great, and I'd love to hear people's thoughts about this. What's fascinating about this is the trajectory, which I think is inconsistent of Stan Beeman. Like everything about Stan Beeman is inconsistent, and I'm not sure if that was intentionally.
I think he's unraveling.
No, but I'm saying even the choices that he was making before he was unraveling in the beginning. Are you suggesting he's unraveling because he's having this affair with Nina before?
I think it's before. And Jaclyn, please finish your thought. But it's I think from coming back from the white supremacist thing and trying to reintegrate into society and try to, first of all, exist in a house with his wife and his kid, who's older now. His kid is, well into his teen years, acting a certain kind of way. Reconnecting with his wife is clearly not happening. He's living in suburbia. After having lived with the worst of the worst of the worst people for 2 years, pretending to be someone else, essentially being Elizabeth and Philip for the last few years. And I don't think he knows who he is anymore. And I think for that reason, he's not himself anymore. He doesn't know. And so he's trying to figure it out, and he's unraveling. But Jaclyn, please, I'd love to hear what you think.
At the end, when they're in the safe house and Elizabeth was going to kill Amador, Philip takes the pistol and says, no, I'll do it, like taking responsibility for what had happened. And he says to her, things got a little crazy. I mean, things got a little crazy between Philip and Martha. He didn't intend on doing that. And then all of a sudden, there was only one TNA scene in this one. But that was like pretty crazy.
And she was saying like the dirty.
Who wrote that?
Holy
were they aiming for maximum discomfort? Like, I think I actually watched that episode. My sister is watching along with me, and we watched that together, and I just wanted to crawl out of my skin.
Yeah.
We're both adults. I was just like,
walking on you. Like
it's as bad. Yeah, I think
things got a little crazy amongst everyone, and I think it kind of got away from Stan. It got away from Amador with his relationship with women and what he usually does. It gets away from between Philip and Elizabeth and their relationship. And they're talking about safe houses. And every time there's a couple in the scenes that start kind of confessing about how it got away from them, they're all in safe places. And so they use safe house as kind of a representation that they're supposed to be feeling safe, but really everything kind of went sideways.
No, right. And that's really, I mean, it's such a smart point, Jaclyn, because I'm thinking about the kids too, right? So we see just from the very beginning, the kids' reaction to their parents separating, and their house no longer feels safe to them because dad doesn't live there anymore. And I'm not a child of divorced parents. I feel with my generation, I am very much in the minority. Maybe because, we talked in the beginning about how in the 80s, divorce was peaking and a lot of my friends' parents were divorced. And so I don't know what that conversation is like. I can only imagine how painful it would be for a couple of kids to have to hear that. It was really sad because they were lashing out and they were angry and they were acting out, but really they were just hurt and they couldn't understand why their parents, who they seem to love each other very much, don't want to live together anymore. And so they're questioning their whole lives, like what's real.
I think that's a really important catch moment in the culture as well. When I grew up, the old one here, I knew one kid whose parents were divorced. It was it. And my wife went through a divorce with her parents, but it was like, don't tell anybody.
Right.
It was shameful. And I think the culture changed quite a bit. I think feminism had something to do with that. I think that was liberating and important. But so the context in which they would see a divorce, what should I tell my friends?
Right.
Was
like,
that
you don't need to say anything.
Right. But I want to come, it says the spy, but I want to come, this is Julie's favorite subject every week, is the mechanics of parenting. So now Elizabeth is a single parent.
Yeah.
And is off all the time. So there's even less chance that the kids are taken care of.
Yeah.
These kids are raising themselves. And by the way, a lot of us did, right? In the 80s. Like, that's what we did as latchkey kids. I mean, like, I think I'm about the same age as Henry was in 1981. I think he's about right. Yeah, like you got yourself home.
The irony here is that Ronald Reagan, who's president during this period of time, who's seen as this like bastion of conservatism, the great communicator, which is something I have never understood, but whatever, not for today. But Reagan is like the father of no-fault divorce. He was the first governor to sign it into law in 1969 in California because he liked him some divorces and he wanted to be able to do that and have the freedom to do so. And so really kind of set off a ripple effect of the freedom to divorce in this country.
He was the first divorced president. Don't forget. Yeah. Married to Jane Washington, and she dumped him.
Ronald Reagan walked so Donald Trump could run. He's like, I got all the divorces.
More ways than one. The other thing that I think is interesting about Philip is that Philip fell asleep with his glasses off.
Yeah.
And I don't know how Philip the spy can relax enough to fall asleep.
Yeah. I have a note here that he fell asleep with his glasses off, but his wig has managed to stay on.
Oh.
You guys,
vigorous sex.
That wig has managed to stay on under much worse circumstances than like that.
He's got a lace front and he's gluing it down, ladies.
I don't know what Martha's doing to his hair, but based on everything else they're doing, I'm surprised that wig has stayed on.
Yeah, it has stayed on, like with all like the hair pulling and whatever it is that it says. I was reading reviews. I believe this is from The Guardian. Had written, "We're still awaiting news in last week's comments about the availability of quote unquote special sex wigs." Like, does Clark have a special sex wig for Martha? And why did Elizabeth show up to the safe house dressed like a girl Clark? Like, it was very strange. There was like girl and boy Clark.
Well, also props to Philip, because this is in the pre-Viagra days. So props to Philip for being able to do that with Martha as he is going through a separation from the woman who he loves.
Right, because remember she had, and I think this was the week before, right? That she had the necklace on. It was this one, because I rewatched the other one right before this.
Yeah.
And it was like kind of banging up in his face. And he was like, can you take this off, please? It's a little disturbing.
He was taking out of his frustrations on Martha.
I don't know.
Well, it was Elizabeth's necklace that was banging him in the face. And so and like also wearing that white turtleneck while he's having sex with Martha.
First of all, why would you wear a turtleneck with that wig? You take that turtleneck over your head.
I know. Maybe that's why he didn't take it off, because he was afraid the wig was going to go with
He
it.
probably still had his socks on too.
Yeah.
Like that character.
It would be a Clark character that has socks on. You know?
Yeah,
Yes, true.
It's like, Martha, that was wonderful. Poor Martha, man. It's just, she's like so clearly, and I mean this not to be so funny, but like the heart of her character has so much to give. And she says, I'm in love with you, Clark. I've been waiting my whole life for you.
I'm in love with you. I waited my whole life for you.
Please tell me, is this real?
Is this real?
Yes.
And it was so, it made me think of the scene with Philip and Elizabeth a couple episodes back when he comes back from seeing Irina and he lies to Elizabeth and says nothing happened. And Elizabeth says, I just want this to be real.
I want us to be able to say what's true. I want it to be...
What?
I want it to be real. Do you think that we could do that?
Mm-hmm. And there goes...
There's nothing real, folks.
There's nothing is real. Nothing for anybody. And it's like this poor woman who's with this man who she's in love with, where they don't go anywhere except her apartment.
And he didn't say I love you back either. He
didn't
decided just to stay.
Yeah. If this is real, then will you stay? Yeah. And so he does. And then it sets off a chain of events that change so much of the show and the characters.
I think Martha might have the most fun role on the show from an acting perspective. I mean, first of all, the actress, I just looked up some pictures of her because I remember from the time. So her name is Allison Wright. Mm-hmm. She's a hottie, and she's not nearly as like old and dowdy as she is on the show.
Yeah.
I feel like from an acting perspective, especially that one line that I cannot even bring myself to repeat. I've said all sorts of shit on this show. I'm not going to repeat that line.
Wasn't it something like shoot something inside me, Clark?
Yeah. Oh, shoot yourself into me, Clark!
Shoot yourself into me, I believe it was.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's right when my son came in.
If I could have been a fly on the wall when that happened, Julie, I swear.
I went like this to him, and he's like, my ears are still, he's like laughing. I'm like, I don't have hands to do all of this to you.
Oh, God. Anyway, just to say, I think she's got the most fun role. She doesn't have to do any combat. She gets to be silly. She has crazy clothes. I think she's got a good gig.
Yeah, I agree. I'm looking at some lines here that I wrote down. There's no pause button. And Chris, I think, says that given the Jennings current situation, there is no pause button. I feel like the pause button thing was used quite a few times. And I like the other line that Amador says to Elizabeth about, like, you know, we're going to win the war. He says, we're going to kick your motherland's marbled ass. There's a lot of alliteration there for a man who is about to die and bleeding out. But, you know, maybe it's the morphine that was able to, for the alliteration moment.
Elizabeth kept saying, it's all for the good. This is for the greater purpose. Like, she kept trying to convince herself that every action she was taking was not for her own selfish reasons. It was for the benefit of the greater service of the greater good of the motherland.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting how she was kept getting sucked into the morals. And I'm like, but that's not Elizabeth.
Yeah.
And by the way, after all of that, they still work together in rather tense situations.
Yeah. You're like,
They're still
we
functioning.
still got to work together. It's not we're just co-parenting. We have to run this travel agency fakely, and then also be spies on top of it and try to pretend that, you know, it's I
work at a travel agency. Like, if you're working at this travel agency, like, what's going on? Like,
I know they got to be like, where are these people? What are they doing? Doesn't
I think they're absentee bosses.
Yeah, they're just like, let yourself in, kind of
if
thing.
you're the kids, are you like, it's 3 a.m. and mom and dad had to go and book a cruise for somebody? Like, where are the parents supposed to be under the travel?
This is always
coming back to this.
If I were to leave the house right now at 3 a.m., I think my my son would have questions about where the hell I was off to 3 a.m.
Yeah, the neighbor, Stan's wife, actually gave away the goods, saying, "Yeah, I saw Philip leave with his bags."
Sitting by the window the other night, I was reading and I saw Philip leave. I mean, I wasn't spying. No, of course not. I mean, is everything okay with you guys?
So, that house is not as safe as Elizabeth originally thought it was.
She's spying better than Stan is.
Sorry.
Right. Yeah, the neighbors are spying on their house, so it's not safe.
And speaking of that scene where she says that they're at the party, right? There were some other very 80s things I noticed in this episode having to do with culture from a food perspective. And some of the snacks that were laid out at the party were like a little 80s-ish, but even more so were Elizabeth is talking to Paige about what to eat. And she's talking about Chinese food.
A wok.
And with her wok. And meat sauce from a jar, I guess, spaghetti and meat sauce.
And I bought a wok.
What for?
To make Chinese food.
You've never made Chinese food.
First time for everything.
You and Dad split and you start cooking Chinese food?
So we'll have spaghetti and meat sauce then.
I remember growing up in the 80s as a kid, and if my mom made the sweet and sour chicken or something, it was the biggest treat ever. But you went to the store and got these Americanized little cans of baby corns and stuff. It was kind of trendy right at the time to have Chinese food, but also and you mentioned this earlier, Nina, the grapefruit. When she brings breakfast to Clark / Philip, it's the grapefruit. And what else was it? It was grapefruit coffee and a single red rose. But again, that was very the diet culture too of the 80s, where when no one was eating except for grapefruit, cottage cheese, and maybe some Slim Fast.
There was also a kind of adventuresome. I think it was also a time of ethnic food. And I remember when my parents discovered artichokes. That was blow your mind, bizarre. And more than that, escargot.
Oh,
yeah.
Home? Yeah.
At home,
Yeah.
yes. We had escargot at home.
I'm just thinking,
Trust
Jaclyn,
anybody.
your mom. I know. I was like, your mom just recently. So Jaclyn, for people, if you're just tuning in for the first time, Jaclyn is my sister-in-law. Her brother is my husband. And so your mother has recently discovered escargot, and she orders it anywhere that will have it. And if it doesn't look or smell exactly the way that she had it the first time, she sends it back or complains. She's like, it's too green or something. It's just so funny that it's, it wasn't back then that she discovered it.
We bought the little pincher for the so you can hold the shell.
Oh, and pull it out.
Oh yeah, we got fully into it. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I love escargot, and I still have a wok. And I
have a wok too. Yeah,
I have a wok. I can't pretend that I've used this wok in the last 10 years, but I cannot bear to throw it away for reasons that make.
Did you used to watch the show Walk with Jan?
No, I just. Why do I?
Anyone else? Walk with Jan, Jeff. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He drove a little crazy.
He always had the sayings on his thing, look for falling walks and things.
But I gotta say, guys, I'm watching this and I miss the 80s. I do.
I mean, rose-colored
You
glasses.
missed the 80s. I can't believe you haven't watched Stranger Things yet. When I told my husband none of y'all knew who Sadie Sink was. Oh,
I know.
You gotta watch it.
All right. Is there anything that we have not discussed yet on this episode?
Here's the thing. So we're getting close to the end of the season, right? And this back and forth, and I think I said this last week, this back and forth with Philip and Elizabeth. I mean, obviously the show goes on for several seasons, so we know that they're going to at least exist in the same world together, but it's very frustrating. I'm like, obviously you love each other, get over it and figure it out. It's just annoying, but I guess that's the whole point of storytelling.
Yeah, I'm getting a little, I got to tell you, the whole, I was actually thinking about this with The Sopranos, because the other marriage around this time period that was examined ad nauseum was the Tony Soprano, Carmela Soprano relationship. And yet that didn't seem as tedious at all as this marriage. And I guess because that one had a lot of comedy attached to it, and there's nothing comedic.
Not any funny. Yeah.
Comedic about this. This is just like two people who. It's getting to the point where like I'm starting to be triggered by their marriage. Like, oh my God, I can't like live in this bad marriage anymore. Just. But
It's frustrating.
Luckily, Agent Amador, the worst character of the season, has finally met.
He's met his
has gone to the eternal reward. his harem of women in the sky.
When they started the show, because I was thinking about, I'd love to know how these things were tied together and how far into the season, like this episode was written, right? How did things have to come together so that Amador had to? What did they have to set up before? Where was the Bible on the show and so on? But if you're Amador, do you know from the first show that you're going to get killed, or is that a suspense for a cast member?
Well, because when you sign a contract, right, for the beginning of a show, to be a series regular, right, it used to be 22 episodes, but then it became like 12 or 13 or whatever.
Hollywood, right?
Yeah, right. So. I'm sure that maybe from the beginning he got a number of episodes, or maybe because until the pilot was greenlit, until it was picked up, you know what I mean? It might have only been 6 episodes for everybody anyways. So who's to say? Like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Maybe we can ask him to come on the show. We can ask him.
You've all just said how much you can't stand him.
I don't like his character. I'm sure he's a lovely person.
Agent Amador, I'm sure really John is a wonderful man. I'm so glad to see the back of him. I don't want him around. It's not his fault.
No. Well, you know what? It's a testament to his performance for how much we hate him by how well he performed. True. He performed the role. I always think if they're sufficiently annoying or unlikable or detestable, it means that the actor's doing a really good job. You know,
a nice way to put it. For the really
think of like characters you really hate, like truly, like in any show.
I had a movie made about Mia Fox, so I know very well how much there are people who played who I can't stand, but nobody like Agent Amador.
Before we go, I do want to say just one thing to Jaclyn. Today, as the day that we are recording this episode, it is your birthday. So happy birthday. Feliz cumpleaños.
Thank you, friends.
Also, Jaclyn graduated. Yep. I mean, Jaclyn has got so much stuff happening this week. Mm-hmm. So we love you, Jaclyn. We are so
thanks for taking time out of your life to record with us today, because I know we had other stuff going on, but it worked out, and we're glad you're here. And we're so proud of you.
I want to tell the folks what your degree is in, because I think it's fascinating.
I got a legal learned master's in art, entertainment, and sports law from the University of Miami. So it was a fantastic experience. I really enjoyed the year. I had met some really great people, and I was intellectually challenged in ways that I had never been. So I have an understanding of domestic policy concerns. And really, at the end of the day, it's the relationships that I've made that I'm going to keep with me as I move forward with the next stage of my life and career. It's been an amazing experience. I loved it.
And Jaclyn can represent Amador and Martha in their next shows.
Yes. And I always tell anybody who wants me to be their defense counsel, just invoke your rights and don't say anything and give me a chance.
Right.
Give me a chance to represent you on, to invoke the constitutional rights. Don't say anything.
And I'm sure, Jaclyn, also a welcome departure from thinking about military law and, having done that for the last 2 decades. It's something completely different to learn about.
Yeah,
so
it was definitely a great break, and I think I needed it. But it also gave me some clarity on what I want to do next. And I'm ready to get back in the fight and serve my country. And I got accepted to Georgetown University's Law Center to do a national security LLM, which I will be starting in August. So I'm going to have a 5-week sabbatical and go to Europe and visit some friends and family there, and then get in the car and drive up to DC and find a home and start to get back into the fight and be a formal member of the resistance at this point.
Hell yeah.
Boy, Saxa.
We love it. We love it. We love it. Well, Jaclyn, we're so proud of you. Congratulations. Happy birthday. And until next, and very much mazel. And until next week, we'll be back for episode
10.
10. We'll be back for episode 10 next week. we're getting to the end here of season 1, everybody.
How many seasons is it? I don't even know. I signed up for this.
6.
I don't even know how many seasons.
Well, I mean,
we own you for like the next.
We own you for the next however many weeks. We'll probably, and just if you're listening to this too, probably take a little break in between seasons, obviously, to kind of regroup and figure everything out. But so glad you're here. If you're listening, please find us on YouTube at the Mayday Network. But if you're watching us here on YouTube or Substack, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and go ahead and like this video down below. It helps us immensely. It helps other people like you find this show. Like and subscribe. Helps other people like you find the show so we can have more people and more friends to watch The Americans with. And, tell your friends, tell your fam. And everybody, we'll see you next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
You are listening to The Mayday Network.